We're back to assault your ears with another retrospective, this time of Season 4 of Lower Decks. We are the Lower Dorks. I am Stavros, and...
You are?
I'm not Stavros.
I thought that was me. You're Aaron.
God, Jesus.
And I'm a Stavros.
Yeah,
pretty sure.
I feel that's like what it is. So, you know what? I guess we're going to dive into this thing and we'll overanalyze our favorite animated adventures. And you know what? Maybe we've already started a little early on drinking this fine elixir, Stavros. Tell us about it.
Yes, so this is one of our favorites on the show. It is Old Smoky's Mango Habanero Whiskey. One of my favorites. I actually, when you suggested this drink, I had to buy another bottle because I finished the last one we were drinking when we had this drink before. So always nice to have it in our shelf. It's all good. Yeah,
this is one of my old standbys. I usually have a bottle in the old liquor cabinet so I can pour a glass when it's time to celebrate.
It is very delicious.
Highly recommend.
Although this time we were talking before the show, it's missing a little bit of the bite. They were hypothesizing maybe they changed their peppers or something.
Yeah, it's a little softer. You know, I feel like if this is what I wanted, I would probably just, buy some Fireball and save myself some cash. But, maybe it's just a temporary problem and the recipe will get back to normal and I'll get that sweet, sweet burning sensation that makes me regret my life choices.
Or maybe, maybe there's listeners out there that, they've been curious every time you drank it and they've just been a little scared of the habanero. Maybe now's a good time to give it a shot so it's only a mild bite.
That's a good point. It is much milder. Give it a go if you're not into the super spicy. But of course, if you're not into the super spicy, I have to ask, what are you doing with your life? Clearly, you don't live on the edge.
You have problems.
Yes.
Yeah, rethink your life choices.
Anyways.
Well, let's talk about Season 4.
What are we doing tonight?
Yeah,
this is our Season 4 retrospective. Where do we even begin?
I'm glad you asked. So going into Season 4, we made a lot of predictions about Season 4. Even after seeing the trailer, we made a lot of predictions. And you know what I've learned about predictions on this show?
Is that I'm usually right?
Absolute trash. No.
What?
That's definitely not true. No. It's I feel like the plots on these seasons are so unpredictable. Like, I almost feel like I can't even make any predictions because they will just all turn out to be wrong because the plots are so random and like who the hell knows what we're going to see next season? Like, why even make predictions because I'm just going to be wrong.
I mean, because it's fun, right? That's half the fun of true. Like trying to predict the future and figuring out if you were right or wrong. But you know what? I am going to say more than I think any other season before. I had more correct predictions this season.
Ooh.
So like, we both thought that the Betazoids were Hysperians. We were way wrong on that, right?
Definitely not right there, yeah.
I mean, but come on. It's like Monty Python always said, nobody expects Betazoids. Wait, is that what they said?
Betazoids. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they said.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Anyways. Wait, is it that
or Borg?
Is it Betazoids or is it Beta? I feel like it's probably Betazeds for the plural.
Betazoids, dude. If Betazeds, if there were like 2 of the planet Betazed, then there would be 2 Betazeds. But 3 Betazoids.
Okay, well, I don't know. But I do want to point out, there are a number of things that I got right. I got right that there was going to be a Voyager museum and that it was going to be infected by the macrovirus.
What else is a virus going to do, dude? Not infect something? I'm sorry, I'm tearing you down.
Get right the fuck out, Stavros! Right out! I correctly identified the Orion ship that gets attacked by Locarno.
Yes, that's
we
true.
We were way wrong on who the threat was this season. But come on, who could have seen Locarno coming?
Who could have seen it?
I will say there is a hilarious bit in our Season 4 predictions segment where we are trashing on the artwork.
Yes.
That was shown in the trailer, wound up being, on the Vexilon orbital. And that is hilarious because that is actually a bit in the show.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
That's true.
I feel like that is a huge win for us. So you know what?
We get validated.
Let's raise a toast to our self-congratulatory validation of our worldviews.
Well done, us. Well done, you at least.
No, because we both shit on the artwork, and you know what? Agreeing with Ransom is never wrong.
Yeah, well, I guess you're right, especially in this season. Okay, well, all right. So maybe we'll do some predictions for season 5 after all. Then you've talked me into it.
Always predictions for season 5, but we gotta wait till we have like a trailer. I mean, this.
We need something to go.
Yeah. The retrospective is our hopes for the next season. The trailer is our predictions. Right. So
yeah.
So come on, McMahon, get that trailer out there. We've got we've got an off season to fill here.
That's true. But you mentioned the Locarno metaplot, so let's talk about that a little bit. Did you feel like it worked? Because, kind of similar to what we've seen in the metaplot in previous seasons.
Did you not feel like it worked?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's the introduction of the metaplot, because it's only very briefly teased in kind of a non sequitur way to a lot of the other episodes this season. So I liked the metaplot. But as far as like stretching out the teases and making it a longer term thing, I'm less sold on that. It was still really fun episodes, but did it work for like the tease component that happened in all the earlier episodes?
Well, I think this kind of ties into the changing entertainment environment that we're experiencing now, where there's kind of an expectation of serialized storytelling versus episodic.
Right.
But I am one of those people who I believe there is a place for both, right? I even think that purely episodic series still have a place in the market. It is not the dominant place that it once had, but I still feel like those sorts of storytelling, that sort of storytelling can definitely still have a place. And it's kind of a choice that you got to make on what you want to do with your series. That being said, holy hell, this series had so many season-long plots going on. Like, and not even like the soft plots of previous seasons, like Tendi or Rutherford might have gotten in season 1 or 2, where they have like minor character moments that kind of interconnect. But like, it feels like every character had a season-long plot that was played out over the episodes. There was the meta plot of the Locarno thing. There was the promotion plot of them getting comfortable in their new roles. There was the Talin plot of her coming to grips with maybe she does belong on the Cerritos versus back on the Shovel. That was the name of their previous ship, right? The Shovel?
Shovel.
Yeah,
exactly.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
God, but yeah, did you get that sense that like they really crammed in a lot of overarching plots this season?
Yes, I did, and you're right. It's not just the Locarno bit, because there is a lot of character stuff going on this season too. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. I feel like it's all done pretty well. It's not like they fumbled any one of those particular things. They're all long-term things, and they all seem to work pretty well.
No, and even your like the mystery ship Locarno plot that you were kind of like, I don't know if that really worked. It was just these little teases. Yeah. Each one of those teases grew the overall plot. Because in the first ones, it's just, there's a mystery ship. It destroys, whoever they're attacking. But like, as it goes along, like you get to the Romulan scene where they're like, I have a plot that's going to overthrow the captain. And then something happens and you're like, were they involved in that? And then later when you get to the Ferengi, they're like, oh, I've been waiting for this. And it's like, whoa, wait, what? And then the big reveal at the end is like the final payoff to that growing storyline. Yeah. I think it worked pretty well. Again, as I say every season, I feel like it takes my sci-fi episodic comedy series a little too seriously. But
that's why we're here.
That's enjoyed it.
That's why our show exists.
And that's all I care about is enjoying things in life.
What? You can't just enjoy life. That was okay. Now I see where you're going with that. I wish that there was a little more happening, maybe with instead of just teases early on, maybe something a little bit more substantial. I mean, it did affect the plot to some degree. Like that's what triggers, the visit to Agimus and all that kind of stuff. So maybe I just wanted a little bit more happening instead of just like a few quick teases and then the bulk of it happening at the end. But that's kind of turned into the calling card of this show, is like some light metaplot stuff happening up front and then the big stuff happening in the back.
Honestly, it works for me. Not every series needs to be late series DS9 or Discovery for the whole series, Sometimes they can be that soft arcs versus the real hard arcs that inform every storytelling decision in every episode.
I think that's totally fair. Well, let's talk about the main characters, and you alluded to it already. We're above the Warp Core 4. We're at the Warp Drive 5 now.
Warp Drive 5, baby!
Lynn. That's right.
Shit.
And you got your favorite character, Lynn. And not only is she basically part of the main cast, basically. I mean, she's not in every episode, but she's in there a lot now. She gets basically her own episode with the empathological fallacies.
Oh, boy.
What do you think of that?
I feel like this hurts my soul to say this, but Lynn is the best character in this season.
Wow,
they do
that's
a
high praise.
Fantastic job with the character arc. And I know she's like a dime store Daria archetype.
Yeah.
But it works really well for the character, and the actress who plays her
she's good.
Yeah, she does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
There's moments in this season where like I kind of question the delivery of like a lot of the characters. But Lynn has a lot of really bland lines, and having to deliver them in that deadpan, it's gotta be tough over and over again. But
yeah,
just fantastic throughout the season.
Yeah.
Great character growth. One of the standout moments in the season for me, like comedy moments, mind you, is in, I think it's the final episode, where she decides to stay on the Cerritos and not return to her previous ship and no longer pursue that, so she can stay on the Cerritos to become science besties with Tendi.
Yeah.
That delivery is really good.
Hangs up on her former captain.
Yeah, exactly. That delivery is really good, but also it ties into like the whole season where Tendi desperately wants to be friends with Lynn. And there's even just tons of episode where Lynn has the connection with the character episodes, right? Where they go through whatever. She gets paired up with everybody, right? She gets paired up with Mariner, with Ransom, with Boimler, Rutherford. She never gets paired up with Tendi in a way where it's just the two of them having their adventure together.
Yeah, the closest we get is the Orion episode.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic episode. But throughout all of that, she always rejects Tendi's advances until that final episode. I thought that was really a great moment.
Yeah. So Lynn's in general, it's crazy. Like you mentioned, the actress is doing a lot with having to basically remain emotionless the entire time. It's really kind of remarkable. So
yeah.
Really
well done.
To see.
Well done. And honestly, you know what? I will no longer shit all over the fanboys on the internet.
You're one of them now.
I'm not a fanboy. Get out of here. I like the character. I didn't fanboy over like a freaking one-off character. I just never got it in her first appearance, but
well, now you're in on the bandwagon. So, like I said, you just have to accept it.
Don't judge me.
Before we get into too much, because each character has a lot of stuff going on, but I mean, as far as the Warp Drive 5 in general, I mean, the big thing here is that they all get promoted almost simultaneously. Their jobs and their roles on the ship are basically changing as a result of that.
Yes.
What do you think of that? I mean, is that changing the tone of the show for you? It's the same.
Yeah, 100%. But more than that, it's really good because they use that promotion to reset all of the characters. There's a point in a lot of
new stuff.
Yeah, there's a point in a lot of TV shows where people have languished in their current positions. It's the whole Harry Kim never gets promoted thing, where it's kind of like, it's too much of their recursive behaviors just don't make any sense. But by promoting everybody, they managed to like turn a page in the story of these people's lives. Really well done. And I think they did a great job. I know you didn't like some of it, but for me, it worked really well.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, rewatching it, I got a bigger appreciation for it. And I think you said it really well. We get the same characters, and it's good because we get some advancement of those characters, and they have different jobs to do. So we still get some of the like uncomfortableness that a character like Boimler might experience, but we're getting advancement, and you know, the comedy is still there. Like all the staples of the show are still there, but we get character advancement at the same time, and that, you know, makes the show better for it.
And the fact that every character responds to their promotion differently, and they actually do an entire episode for each character about that, really well done. It's just good storytelling. Which, it's good storytelling, man. It's supposed to be a freaking comedy, half-hour animated comedy show.
You know, I was thinking, we talked about this in the Caves episode that we did, but I mean, I think the beta shift is the new, like, literal lower deckers. They are still the ensigns. That
they're like the lower deckers, right? There was this there was the moment in that episode where they like mention about how like being on, you know, Delta Shift was Delta Shifters, right? They were Delta Shift.
Yeah.
Like it's not just being lower decks, it's also being the forgotten lower decks people, and it's just
right.
It's so good.
One of the characters like, I've met the captain 5 times,
which is
a lot more than that for our main cast.
The captain is basically the CEO of your ship. How many times has anyone who works for a large corporation met the CEO of their company?
Right.
That is not an unusual thing.
Completely. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about each character. So I want to do Boimler first. And so Boimler is one of my few pet peeves of the show, in the sense that his progression has felt all over the place. Season 1, he's, you know, just your typical lower decker. Then he goes to the Titan and comes back in season 2, and he's sort of a badass. Like, he knows how to, you know, deal with the holographic Borg and deal with Agimus and stuff like that. So he's sort of a badass. And then I feel like in season 3, he kind of regressed a little bit. He's back to being, you know, physical comedy, jokey joke character. But in this season, I mean, he gets promoted. And I think we are getting in a good spot with Boimler, where he's having character progression, but he's still, you know, much in the same way that the show is still doing this. He's got his like comedy moments, but he's tackling new challenges. So it feels fresh and like there's progression for Boimler, but we're not losing what makes the character entertaining.
I actually kind of agree with that, and I did not think that's what you were going to say when we talked about this. But one of the things that I think they did a really good job of this season is there's always that risk of having a character, and this is my big complaint about Discovery, is they have characters face the same fundamental problems over and over again and respond to them in the same way.
Right.
And have the same responses. And you're like, the nice thing about what's going on with Boimler this season is he is experiencing new situations. Now it's not just him. He's responsible for somebody else, right? And, you know, he does have those ridiculous, just over-the-top moments where he gets comedy, ridiculous responses to things. But it's not like where he faces like the same issues he had in previous seasons. I like that Bold Boimler didn't stick around, right? I like that, like,
thank goodness.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's a good bit, but it's like, the whole bit is that Bold Boimler was not a good fit for him.
Right.
So I think that works. The real problem they're going to find is that going forward, they can't keep resetting every season, right?
Yeah.
Now he's in charge of other people. They might get a couple of seasons out of that gag. But what happens in season 6? You know? That's the other issue.
Is, season we get to it.
Are they going to keep getting promoted? And once that happens, what does that mean? I would love it if Lower Decks kept going and just over time they phased out the main characters for new characters, and the old characters like this series is kind of well, yeah, it's a very intertwined with the senior officers. You know, your Shax, your Ransom, your Captain Freeman. Replace those characters with the lower deckers and introduce new lower deckers. That's
a good idea. It's kind of the Grey's Anatomy situation. I don't know if you watch that show. I know far too much about it for someone who hasn't seen it in many years. But it's the same thing there, where the show starts with a group of interns, and then they progress or get killed off, and then they're a new intern. Yeah. So similar thing.
And that's a big problem. You can't just stick to the status quo forever, but your character growth has to be believable and intentional. You don't want to have characters who are stuck in the same moment over and over again. And at the same time, you don't want to just write off characters because we don't know what to do with this character anymore.
Yeah. And he gets a little bit of the Captain Fever in the finale episode too.
Captain Fever, I felt like he was very evened out. Like his acting captain moment was fantastic.
I loved it. It was great. I loved his posture where he's doing the intense captain pose. Command chair was good.
You know, that ties into something that I really noticed this season. I've noticed it in other seasons, but this season, it feels like it took it to a next level. The animation in this show is really good.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like,
completely.
All sorts of, like, and it's even like little things, right? One of the things you notice in animation is when people are walking. When a normal person walks, their whole body moves, right? You get shoulders, you get hips sway, you get hands moving, you get legs moving. Even people's heads often develop a weave or a bob. And in a lot of animation, they just don't animate that. But there were scenes where, like, there's one where they're walking down the hallway and they're, like, coming straight at the camera. And while the actual animation they went with, I don't think was the best, the fact that they chose to animate that whole body movement was really amazing. I thought that was really good.
Yeah. Really, constantly, the production value has definitely skyrocketed. And those kinds of details are always great. Yeah. Especially in the Boopsy episode where they're all of the different, animals and stuff in the menagerie. Like, they all animate different ways. It's not like they can reuse animations, in task style.
Yeah.
Or any of those things. It's all different stuff. So love to see it. It's good.
And there's even lots of other things where, like, there'll be a scene where everybody's, like, just standing around idly, and they'll do, like, the characters, like, fidgeting. There's one scene where Rutherford, he's got his hands on his hips, and he's not really doing much, but you notice, like, his hands are moving. Like, when he starts talking, his fingers tap on his hips, and, there's scenes where people, like, just shift their posture. Although the shifting the posture when you're standing, that is very much an American thing. I don't think that is like a universal human thing.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's weird. And I personally have only noticed it in, like, videos of, like, other countries. But I've known people who have lived abroad for years, and that is something that they mention, is they will notice just how much. Yeah. They call it the American lean. Americans never just stand up straight. We lean on everything. If there's nothing to lean on.
The Trump lean? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh my God. No, the Trump lean is you have some sort of
something else.
Issue. His, I think his is I've spent so much of my life trying to overinflate my height that it has led to my posture being terrible. But when American stands, we tend to stand on one foot. Right. Have you ever noticed this with yourself? You tend to put your weight on one foot, and you'll occasionally switch from one foot to the other. Sure. Or like...
Is that an American thing? Is that what it is?
Supposedly it is.
Oh.
I'd be really intrigued to see if there's ever been a study of this, or if there's anybody who's trying to figure out why. But supposedly, yeah. And it's not even just that. Like, you ever notice you see people in public, and there is, like, a wall nearby, they won't just stand next to the wall. They'll lean on the wall a little bit.
You have to lean on it?
Yeah. And supposedly that's just America. It is not the whole world. I'm really intrigued to see if that is true, but I've never made the effort to do like a deep dive into that research.
Well, before we get too much more into cultural analysis, let's get back.
Yeah, that's right. What were we talking about? Oh shit! This is a Lower Decks Star Trek. Right? But yeah, animation A++. I got to give them credit.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like I feel like they over animate to the point where I'm like, you guys didn't need to do that. I appreciate that.
I will never say that. Can't be too much detail. Yeah. Let's go back to Boimler for a second. So, I mean, the only other interesting thing about Boimler that we haven't covered already, he's got a little extra screen time with Rutherford, which I don't really think we saw too much of previously because he's got the shared quarters now.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of that there. And we've got, of course, the Twin Twains joke, which I think we're going to talk more about later when we talk about jokes.
Yeah. Well, jokes are like favorite episodes because that is
both,
huge for me.
It's in both of those.
Yeah,
for sure. But I mean, using that to segue to Rutherford, I don't think Rutherford really gets that much this season. He's got the Badgey episode, but he doesn't really get any advancement out of that, really, right?
He does, though,
There's
right?
Not much Rutherford.
It shows a
little bit.
Well, I mean, the whole shift in his character and his worldview, right?
Mm.
A lot of people like
giving you hugs.
Yeah, like his response to like Badgey's evilness is to say like, "I'm sorry, I know I contributed to that." Which was just, like, I love that episode on, like, it's such a great direction to take.
Yeah.
The whole, like, and it was so wholesome, right? Yeah. Star Trek has this really bad habit where they have these high moral values and they do a lot of, like, we're evolved and we're a better world and we work through our problems rather than let them own us. But you rarely get that level of wholesomeness that happened in A Few Badgies More, where every storyline, the resolution isn't demanded by, like, the crew. It's like, if you go through these steps, if you find these things, you kind of realize that, hey, maybe all these toxic personality traits and behaviors, they're not good, and maybe changing is for the best.
And if you recall, when he makes Badgey, he's trying to impress Tendi. So I think that, he's kind of grown and realized the error of that and, taking responsibility.
Yeah.
So good. You're right. Wow, you talked me into respecting my favorite character more than I already do.
Yeah. So, I mean, do we have a scheduled Tenderford segment in our...
let's do it right now. I think we should.
All right, you won me over. Tenderford is a thing. It's an inevitability.
Oh my God. Speaking of details, I wasn't even going to mention that. It was not even in my notes, but, right at the end shot where at the end of the season, let's just talk about him and Tendi now because... at the end of when Tendi gets pulled onto the Orion ship and, it's back on the Cerritos and they're like, hey, don't you want to go like stare at the warp core or whatever? And Rutherford's like, yeah. But then right at the end, when he's walking out of the shot,
he's super sad.
Out a second. Yeah.
So
sad.
Fantastic writing, fantastic animation. But you know what? Totally. That's a really well put together, storyline because, for anybody who's ever like been in love, losing a friend is rough, right? Having somebody leave you when they're a friend is tough. But there is like an extra layer when that relationship is that next level of, we are right for each other. Losing that person is just, it's so hard to even like quantify that sense of loss. But they did such a great job of portraying it. It was really well done because, it's obvious that the rest of the lower deckers are, they're upset about it. Yeah, it's kind of sad, but their friend is alive. She's having adventures. But Rutherford, it's an end point.
It's different, right?
Yeah, it's... Mm-hmm. There was a deeper relationship, and it's that lost. And they just do a great job of portraying it. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
And I hate you because everything about this season is me having to be like, I was wrong about my views.
Hey, much like Rutherford, you're growing as a person and accepting, and taking responsibility. And
I think it's,
if Rutherford can do it and you can do it.
I think it's less that and more like we all have ways when we're watching a story that we hope it goes. And when the writers don't go that direction, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all about whether the story is good or not. And it's good. I mean, they did a great job of portraying everything. Acting, writing, even the animation. It's really well put together.
Totally. A bit more on Tendi, though. I mean, so she, like I said, she gets picked up by the Orions and she goes to hang out with the Orions for a while. What do you think there? Do you think it seems like it'd be a temporary thing, but I don't know. Are they doing something bigger with her, do you think? Something not Starfleet-y, like on a permanent basis? Is she gone forever? Or
in the context of the show, the ending doesn't make any sense because in Something Borrowed, Something Green, the ending is her reconciling with her sister and them both accepting each other's positions. Mm-hmm. But the impetus for her going back to Orion is her sister forcing her to do that. And that doesn't make sense in the context of what we had seen previously. So I'm willing to bet that in, what is it? Season 5 is next season 5, right? This is season 4.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep. You can do math. I knew you could.
I just have a hard time remembering what season we're on. I feel like next season is just going to be like there's a reason her sister wanted her to come home, but was unable to say why. Mm. And that'll get resolved somewhere in the next season.
So you think she'll be back much in the same way that Boimler came back from the Titan?
No. I think it is a toss-up. Either she will come back and will restore the status quo, or they'll go to Orion and resolve her storyline, and she'll be written out of the series as she chooses to remain on Orion.
I think we can all agree we hope that doesn't happen.
I don't care.
But it is a possibility.
I don't care. I just like good stories. As long as it's well written.
Yeah, as long as it's a good. Yeah. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Good stories trumps all. So
yeah, the only person that I would really be upset if they wrote out was Ransom.
Hey, Jerry O'Connell's busy doing Pictionary, so who knows if he'll have time for Commander Ransom next season. Who knows?
Shut your mouth.
All right, let's move on to the last Lower Decker, the last of the Warp Drive 5, and that's Mariner, of course. And holy crap, we get all this character development for her. Happens over several episodes. We get to the root of why she acts like she does is because she's affected by what happened to Ensign Cito Jaxa in Next Gen, which she gets unceremoniously killed by Cardassians off screen, I believe. So finally, the backup there. My favorite part of this is still the Klingon counseling session where Ma'at still, basically identifies the issue and gets her to act like I was going to say like a normal human, but he gets her through her problem, basically.
Yeah, I really enjoy, that episode is actually really down on my list of episodes from this season as far as quality goes, or as far as my enjoyment goes. That moment, though, that counseling session, like I like to say, is freaking Klingon captain still a better counselor than Miglimo.
Have we seen Miglimo be effective, though, ever?
Apparently he's doing well with Boimler.
Yeah, Boimler likes it, at least, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
But I really enjoy that scene, but the rest of the episode, I'm just kind of meh on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But that, so a big element is that is actually kind of it's not even really a retcon, right? Because every season we get a new explanation of Mariner's
issues.
Problem with in the first season, it was, her mother is the captain of the ship, and the only reason she's still in Starfleet is because her and her father are protecting her. And then you get, she also had this, I don't even remember what the other bad experiences she had, right? But every season it feels like there's a new thing with her.
I see what you mean. It feels like it's kind of the Boimler trap, right? Like they do certain things to progress her character, but she still kind of gets stuck in this rebellion against authority character trope.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, they've sort of figured it out, maybe again.
You know what?
We'll see if that makes her advance.
That's going to be the problem with next season. Do they try to reset the status quo and give her a new thing that she rebels against? Because, you know, that's the truth about people, though. A lot of times, like, we want to simplify people and say, oh, yeah, you know, your mother didn't love you enough, so therefore you are not an effective adult. But it's like, man, people are complicated. A lot of stories happen in their life that lead them to being where they are. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I actually think it's pretty good you know, Mariner is a Starfleet kid. There's this guy, Stephen Shives, who does these things on his YouTube channel where he portrays a Starfleet, like, not somebody we've seen on screen. Like, he's done the Starfleet JAG officer video and the Starfleet guidance counselor. And it's one of those things where he does these bits that are just really good, where it's all like, these things have to exist that we've never seen before. And he points out all the ridiculousness that we see throughout the series. And as far as Mariner's concerned, like, yeah, being a Starfleet kid has got to be rough. And she grew up in what is most likely one of the most chaotic times in Starfleet history. You know, it's kind of like how it's kind of like how we came up in one of the most secure and safe times in American history.
Right.
But there are people who didn't. And that's got to mess with a person, you know?
So you're trying to say that she, you know, just because they resolved the cause, that doesn't mean she's going to change as a person. And we're probably going to get a lot more Mariner flavor.
Well, and the thing is, like, I like to say people never really change. And what I mean by that is on a fundamental level. And one of the things you see throughout the series is Mariner is like this like true blue best ideals person, right? She's kind of like Ransom in that way. Only Ransom has been reined in by the system. You know, she's all like,
and yet you're still on board with him.
I fucking love Ransom. Get the fuck out of here. Favorite character. Like, she sees a problem and she recognizes what she can do to help resolve it. So she does it, you know. She tries to help people. She wants people to be better. You know, one of the best moments in this season is where Boimler talks about how he's not ready for promotion and he doesn't deserve it. And she's all like, nah, I totally recommended you for that. Because if there's anybody who does deserve it, it's you. And it's like, that is really great characterization. It's just really well done.
Yeah, gosh, it's so hard to make a call on how exactly she'll be next season, just based on all this.
Yeah.
So, my personal view is that we'll get more Mariner flavor, but how reined in is she going to be? Is she going to start cooperating with Ransom, who is giving her the superior officer support that she really needs? You know. We'll see how that all plays out. Do you have a guess as to a hypothesis as to what you think is going to happen?
Not a guess, but a hope. I genuinely hope that as the series goes along, every character finds their niche, and Mariner is never going to be a captain. She is never going to be the person in charge. But she's going to be that, you know, first officer or that, you know, lieutenant commander who is integral in helping people along their journey. Like, we
totally
tend to discount those people who are never going to be right for command, but they are right for helping people become them best selves. Become
kind of like Ransom is doing for her, right?
Selves. Yes. Only I think Ransom is definitely right for command because he can, you know, meter himself to
Yeah.
to fill those other roles that you have to do when you're in charge. And I really hope that that is like what gets portrayed. That eventually, Boimler goes on to become the captain of a ship. That eventually Tendi does become a chief science officer. That Rutherford does become a chief engineer. Or, I even think Rutherford will probably, his long-term storyline should not even be he becomes a chief engineer on a starship. Genuinely think he should wind up going back to, Utopia Planitia and help design
build
new starships. Yeah. I feel like that's probably closer to him. And I could totally see Tendi winding up just following him and becoming some chief science officer for, Starfleet Sciences on Earth or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Wow, so insightful. I'm awed by your insight. I'm just sitting here mouth agape, being and just nodding, being yes, everything you're saying is right.
Oh yeah, thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
I knew it was going to happen at some point. You couldn't stay wrong the entire time we had this show.
I don't know what you're talking about. I am always right.
Are we missing anything about characters? We didn't really talk about the senior officers at all, but anything stick out to you that we should cover before we move on?
So let's see. We talked about Tendi. We talked about Mariner. We talked about Boimler. We talked about how Rutherford doesn't really move that much. Right. No, there is actually somebody we need to talk about.
Okay.
I mean, I know he's not a fan favorite. I know that he doesn't get a lot of screen time, at least not as much as he should. And he's kind of, he's a controversial character. But I really think and I know I don't talk about this character a lot. He's kind of a side character. But I really think we need to talk about Jack Ransom.
Yes, what about him? I was so enthralled, and now I'm just... all that's out the window.
All right, you know what? So first off, there's moments where I feel like he's getting a character assassination this season.
Okay.
Oh my God. Getting shot down hardcore by the Betazoid ambassadors.
Betazoids.
And that's fine, we've all been shot down before. That's why you that's why you lay your game in a wide arc, right?
Cast a wide net, yeah, sure.
But
you don't like how he reacted to that? I mean, to be fair, he was under the influence of telepathic.
But he winds up crying to Stevens. Which, if there's anyone you're going to cry to, don't cry to Stevens. Aw, man. Even Miglimo would be better than Stevens.
Big Limo was busy in that scene, as I recall, destroying replicators.
Well, yeah, because, his soup didn't taste regurgitated, and can you blame him?
Right.
But then...
all I'm saying is that Big Limo was occupied, and it was extenuating circumstances.
By the end of the episode, Ransom is naked crying under a table. Come on. And then...
he's not doing your boy any favors.
Yeah, no. And then there's the whole in the Cradle of Vexilon bit where he says that Mariner's not going to be his problem much longer. But it's all why phrase it that way? Nobody would say it that way unless they were trying to cause that episode conflict.
Yeah, Lower Decks has done that before where they've kind of purposefully done a super obvious red herring just to cause drama, kind of the sitcom sort of thing.
Yeah, the whole... they have a cell phone thing, right? Where it's all there's an obvious solution to this problem if they just use it.
Yeah.
And then the statues gag, which while is hilarious, is also just...
doesn't do him any favors.
No, doesn't. Yeah. But I think the fact that we also bagged on the statues in our trailer analysis kind of shows that, he was a little right. But yeah, just and it's weird too. I remember thinking back to this whole season and being all just feels like a character assassination for Ransom. But on rewatch, I'm all there's really only a few moments that are just, oh God, what the hell, Ransom? I do want to call out one thing though, and maybe I should save this for our gags bit, but did you notice he did the Lieutenant Juniors?
Yes.
That's our bit! Episode, we did a whole bit about that! And then it shows up! So either I firmly believe that somebody on the writing staff is listening to our show and just stealing our bits. Because there's no way that we are that basic that we're just throwing out the most obvious gags.
No, I noticed that in my rewatch too. When they get promoted, they say Lieutenant Junior grades, or maybe Captain Freeman says it. I can't remember who exactly. Then the very next episode, Ransom makes the observation of like Lieutenant's Junior grade, which is the right way. But then I think that's just a symptom of having multiple writers. They just didn't know.
Well, no, I assume that they did know, and somebody on the writing staff is listening to our show. And if you are listening to our show,
if you choose to believe that,
hey, you got two fantastic characters waiting for audition.
And they both drank mango flavored whiskey, apparently.
Okay, let's move on to this.
Let's move on to the jokes.
Yeah. Oh, is that what's next on our line? The jokes?
That is what's next.
Oh boy.
So let's talk about our favorite jokes or gags. I have a top one, but I also want to mention some runner-ups because there are just so damn many in this show, in this season rather, and they're all just so solid. I just looking at my list now, I'm just like, that one's so good. That one's so good. But let's see. Runner-ups. Let's say I'll do 2 or 3 runner-ups. The first runner-up is the buzzard collector lights in the Boimler, in Boimler's quarters for Boimler and Rutherford in I Have No Bones and I Must Flee. I don't know why it was so funny. Just having like the light that's so blinding, and the fact that Boimler didn't know the very simple thing about putting the shades down. And my headcanon for that is because he's never had a room before, so he's never had to use it. Just makes it funny.
Well, yeah, and it's also the whole... It's so obvious, right? Like, it's one of those things where you live in a society that cares about people, and that is a really terrible situation to be in, and there's a really simple solution, right? Like, just
right.
Put shades on the window.
It makes it funny.
Yeah, and that's the hilarious bit. It works really well.
Yeah,
it did not make my list of even honorable mentions.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But
yeah, there's going to be lots of variance in this.
Yeah, definitely. So what are your other honorable mentions?
My other runners up, let's see, in Empathological Fallacies, where T'Lyn says she is Vulcan as a mother effer. I thought that was pretty funny.
That didn't even make my list. I did not find that very funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you're insane. Well, this one, my final runner-up before I get to my winner, is something that you've got to have picked up on from. It's made 2 appearances in Something Borrowed, Something Green, and in Old Friends, New Planets. It's the Twin Twains gag. I love this one. It's something just like the randomness of it, with like somehow it works with both roommate disputes and disputes between alien cultures.
Well,
just makes it great.
It's actually kind of funny. That is actually my number one gag.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Because in the episode it appears in, they use it really well. It works great for Boimler and Rutherford because they're into this concept and they can get into character. And then they're banned from doing it, but they have that end scene where they just choose a new character and it works out fine, right?
Yeah.
And then, and the whole like attempt at the Chalnoth and Captain Freeman failing is fantastic. But then
it's so good.
It gets reused.
Yeah.
In Old Friends, New Planets. And it's so hilarious. Like I may have mentioned this to you before, but like I desperately hope that shows up again. And I think the final season of Discovery is the best place to do it. Where like
Twin Twains.
Well, not even Twin Twains. But like, hey, they have to have this negotiation, and they're really concerned that like just that gulf between their two cultures is never going to be bridgeable. And they're like, okay, so the solution to this is you need to send us an ambassador who also has acting experience. Yeah. And then they send them like some sort of like alien cultural information. And that is how the issue gets resolved, was they both show up to this negotiation and they have to pretend to be, during the negotiation, this, Tellarite or Romulan or Devorian ambassador, right?
Okay.
And that actually works. I really think that would be a really just fantastic moment in the series to turn this completely ridiculous comedy moment into a serious thing. And so, and you know what? It's one of these things where I'm gonna go like off IP here. There is actually an episode of Doctor Who where that is how they resolve the problem. There is an invasion force of shapeshifters, and they are attempting to take over Earth. And the resolution to the problem is these shapeshifters, if they don't succeed, they're just going to die off, right? Their homeworld, I don't remember if it's destroyed or what. And the resolution to that episode is the Doctor erases their memories to the point where the only thing they can't remember is whether or not they are a shapeshifter imposter or whether they are the true person.
Okay.
So when they show
resolves the issue.
Yeah, well, because if you show up to that, because the big thing about the shapeshifters is they kind of like collected all of the memories of that other person. And the resolution to that conflict was if you show up and you have all the memories of the humans and the aliens that are interacting here, but you don't know whether you're a human or an alien, you will create the perfect compromise because you don't know when you walk away from here whether you will be returning to the human society or the alien society. And it's a fantastic story, and I really think the twin twaining bit really like espouses that concept. I really hope it shows up again.
It's great. Yeah, definitely a fantastic bit and usable in comedy and non-comedy applications. So
well,
it's good. But even that is just an honorable mention. My favorite gag this season.
Really? That is your honorable mention? Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. So my favorite one is from an episode that is almost dead last in my episode list. It's from Tuvix. Can you guess which one it is?
Oh boy, you're gonna make me make a list here. God, is it the pat you on your head gag?
No, although that one is quite good. That didn't make my list. God, there's so many in this.
I know, right?
It's ridiculous. If you recall in Tuvix, the Tuvix people.
Oh, it's not the fish gag, is it?
It is the fish gag.
Why is that your number one?
It was Steven's messed with the beluga, and he just goes, "I want fish." It makes me laugh every time. It's the dumbest thing, but I think it made me laugh the hardest in my rewatch. And so I'm going with that one.
God, there was even... Really? That is your number one? Like, there are better gags in that episode.
No. Well,
I mean...
Maybe.
You know what? The whole, did you just pat me on the head bit?
That one's great,
too. And then Boiler's response, yeah, it felt weird to me too, bye! Oh, God.
Bye.
So good.
There's so many good ones, yeah.
And the fact that is not your number one kills me.
Yeah. All right, Twin Twains is your top one, but did you have any other honorable mentions we didn't talk about already?
I mean, how much time do we have? I could go for days. Obviously, we've already talked about the statues gag that I loved.
Yes, the statues, yeah.
And I love the fact that, like, even after he's pointed to, like, what their best statues are,
yeah.
Ransom is all like, just an amateur lack of focus and balance. Like, you don't know. Is that like his honest opinion, or does he just refuse to accept that he, got played? Oh, God. So, like, the Mariner getting stabbed gag, and this isn't even like my top gags, but it's one of those where it could have been. Because, like, that whole running gag throughout that episode, she gets stabbed. She's like, oh, no, this is fine. This is great. And then she gets stabbed again. She's like, oh, what the hell? Yeah. And then in the final stabbing, she's like, I'm gonna hide over here in this knife fight so I don't get stabbed. And she gets stabbed, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But the problem is missed opportunities. In the finale, right? Not the finale. In, what is it? Old Friends, New Planets? Is that the one? No.
Inner Fight?
Inner Fight, yes. Inner Fight.
Glass, yeah.
it rains glass and Ma'a gets stabbed first. It should have been Mariner. And she should have been like, oh, I thought I was past this or something like that. Would have been great.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah, definitely a missed opportunity. They started the season with the I miss my wife gag, where it happens in a couple of episodes, but I don't think it ever comes up again. And it bugs me because like every season there's been like a season long thing that I've caught on to. Like the eye patch thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was going to be it. The I miss my wife gag. Yeah. But it wasn't. And I never found a season long bit that carried through. And that saddens me. I'm deeply wounded. Oh man, I've still got more to go here. I'm only like halfway through my list.
Do you have others?
Did you not bring up the pockets gag?
The pockets, that's also in my top list, but it didn't quite break the top 5.
Really?
I love that joke too.
God, the gag is so good. Like,
yeah.
Did you know? Oh, God.
Captain, did you know?
And it's funny because we talk about that all the time, and I feel like I don't know if we've done it on this show, but I know we've had the conversation in our rewatches where I'm all like, you know what I love about the Enterprise uniforms? They have pockets.
Zippered pockets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that gag really, really hit home for me.
I love that one.
And there's really only 2 other ones. There's the bomb paywall, which is so Ferengi. But not only that is very Ferengi and hilarious, is like now whenever like I encounter paywalls in real life or situations where like the only way to resolve a situation is to pay money to somebody, I can't think about that. I cannot think about that where I'm just like, this is just like, this is so Ferengi. Like, are we living in a dystopian Ferengi society? Yeah, fantastic.
I love it. A lot of good. God, there's just so many. It's hard to just narrow it down.
And you know what? Since this is Lower Dorks, where we drink and talk about Star Trek, I feel like there is one bit that I cannot ignore.
Okay, which one?
Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. When Mariner and what's his name? Quim? Is that his name? Quim?
What's his name?
Something like that. Yeah, her Ferengi friend. They go to get lit. Mm-hmm. There's the moment where she is ordering drinks, right? And the Ferengi is realizing that there's something really wrong here. But she orders drinks, and then when the bartender walks away, she takes a drink. And the Ferengi immediately responds with like, wait a minute.
How did you get that?
Yeah, where did that come? It's so well done. It's such a great lampshade and a call out on like bad storytelling and animation.
Right.
And it's one
Very
of those
deep cut, like one of the deepest.
So well done.
Like a deepest cut on the art form.
Yeah, I just can't say how much I love that bit. Honestly, if it wasn't for the twining bit that spans episodes, boy, I got a little bit of the hiccups. little mango hiccups. If it wasn't for the twining bit, I would probably rank that as my number 1. I don't know why that really speaks to me.
Yeah, I want fish and you want random bottles of alcohol. So I think that says a lot.
Apparently, fish is your thing. I'm not going to judge you.
Apparently. Let's move on to our favorite episodes of this season. So before we get into it, I have to say I tried to rank these as I watched them. I had a very, very difficult time. There are no real duds this season.
Yeah, like that was my big problem, right? I feel like at some point we had talked about like what the worst episode of this season was, and like I couldn't decide. It's difficult. There is no a mathematically perfect redemption in this season.
Yeah. Hilariously, I'm gonna go to the bottom of my list. My bottom episode is I Have No Bones and I Must Flee. But you know what? It makes me think that episode has Moopsie in it, and Moopsie did not make any of our favorite gag lists for some reason, which is like weird because it's like the top internet joke about this entire.
And we love Moopsie. Like it's just such a ridiculous concept. I loved the idea of. You know what? That's another thing, though, that we got wrong in our predictions. The humans in the cage, they were not the psychic humans.
Yeah, that's true.
But
they're just randos.
That episode just, like,
It wasn't bad though, is the thing. Like, there's no bad episodes in this season.
And we even talk about like, oh yeah, the Moopsie plot line, in the menagerie, that bit, not great, but like, and I don't know which one was the A plot or the B plot, but the plot on the Cerritos with Boimler was fantastic.
Yeah. So all that meant to say, I just take that to mean that it was very difficult making my ranking lists for this season. You know,
it's funny, when I started making my list, your number one was actually down near the bottom of my list.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it still there? Is the big question.
No, on rewatch I moved it way up.
Oh yeah.
And there's reasons for that. So let's talk about your number one.
Yeah. So my number one is Caves. And the reason for that is, I felt like this is pretty much the quintessential season 4 Lower Decks episode. We've got the Warp Core 4 together. There's no T'Lyn in that episode. They're kind of doing like this reminiscing / how to say, it's like they're talking about their new responsibilities because they've been promoted and they're all back on a mission together, which is great. And they're talking, about these recent missions that they've done without the other people because, they're promoted. They do different stuff now. So having that as, the core content of the episode, and then the theme being like, we're best bros, like friends forever, lying unconscious on the floor of the turbo lift after getting hammered. It's hitting like the jokes and the feels, and, plus what I was saying before about the Delta Shift being like the newer Lower Deckers, you get a little bit of that in there too. Plus the whole Caves joke where it's like like a quintessential setting for a Star Trek show. It's just hitting all of these boxes. And I wasn't that impressed the first time I watched it, to be honest. I mean, it was funny, but, maybe not the best. But after a rewatch and seeing how it checked all of these boxes is just the best one. I thought it was the headliner.
Yeah, and there's little bits all throughout the episode, right? Like the whole conspiracy theory bit, the introduction and payoff of the Vendorian morality test.
Yeah.
Just, it all works together really well. I also love clip shows where all of the clips they show are things that never happened.
I know, it's great.
it's a really good episode. And that was originally well down on my list, but like on rewatch, I'm all like, you know what? No, this episode, actually, while it's not as funny as other episodes, while it doesn't really, it's not like hard arc episode, everything works. It's a soft arc episode where they deal with like their changing circumstances. It's the humor is much more of a dry humor. The stories they tell are just really good and enjoyable. So yeah, it definitely, like on rewatch, just jumped up several pages.
It's crazy that we both kind of had it lower on our list on first watch, but then rewatch, it jumps up quite a bit.
Yes, definitely.
But anyway, that's my number one. You mentioned something else as your number one. What is your lead episode?
Something Borrowed.
Ooh, nice. That's my number two.
Yes. And so obviously it originates my favorite gag in the episode that gets paid off in another episode. And I love when gags do that, right? Where like in a lot of times you don't even pick up on it on first watch. And I really enjoyed that. The Twain gag is hard to miss. It definitely, you don't miss it on first watch. It does something that I really love in TV shows. It does a gender role swap, like it or not.
With the wedding.
Yeah. Well, not even just with the wedding, right? But, like it or not, we live in a world where there are certain gender role expectations. And this episode does a great job where like T'Lyn is off. Well, actually not even just T'Lyn, but the rest, the female Warp Drive 5 are all put off by Boimler and Rutherford's emotional closeness, to quote T'Lyn. Right. And like that is a role reversal, right? It's supposed to be that, the women are the ones who are emotionally close, even though I don't think like either of those are true in the real world.
Yeah.
I really like that role reversal. But even then, like you said, when we see the Orion culture where the standard, societal roles are reversed, where, instead of a patriarchy, it's a matriarchy.
Right.
Really well done. They do, like, there's a bunch of really great gags, like when Bert, fucking love the naming convention, by the way. They're just all just like very normal American names, and they just throw an apostrophe in there. Fantastic, because that is such a Star Trek trope that nobody ever talks about, where when they want to do an alien name, it's actually just an obscure human name. But like, that is fantastic. And that exploration of Orion culture that, you've never seen. It's something that's alien but familiar is really, really well done.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, the recurring Mariner getting stabbed is fantastic.
Yeah.
It just, failed to pay off in later episodes. There is actually one...
not a trans episode thing.
Yeah. There is one bit that I didn't talk about for great gags, and that is when Captain Freeman mentions about how the Chalnoth is very intimidating, and he's like, "Oh, thank you." It's that very sweet and like heartfelt response. That's just, oh my god,
also good.
Comic
good
gold.
For sure.
The episode is just fantastic. It's, it's got a really strong A and B plot that works really well together thematically. Yeah. That is definitely my number one. Cannot say enough about how good that episode is.
I gotta agree on all points. It's my number 2. It's a strong number 2. All my top 3. My top 3 were Caves, Something Borrowed, and Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. They're all so good. All the episodes this season, like, I'm looking at the episode list, they all have really great gags and plots in pretty much all of them. It was so hard to make this list.
Yeah. This is definitely, I think this may be the first season where there wasn't an episode where I'm all like, yeah, this episode is just, it's in a different tier than the rest of the episodes. All of them were just definitely A tier or even S tier. It's just fantastic.
That's great. Anything else on episodes? I mean, like I said, each one of them has something good. Does anything else stand out to you?
I mean, there's tons of stuff. I actually have about half my notes. This is the first season. I think this is even our first recording where like I had more notes than you.
Yes, that's true.
Oh my god, there's so many great bits in here. Do we just want to go with the random mentions portion? And
yeah, anything random you want to call out?
Oh god, where to begin?
There's so much.
So in Tuvix, there is a moment where the curator is all like, "Are you chewing gum?" And it's
right.
Oh my god, I feel like that I got really It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia vibes. There's an episode where one of the characters calls out another character on chewing gum. But is that the first time we've seen somebody chewing gum in the show?
So it's funny you mentioned that. I have the Memory Alpha has an entry for chewing gum.
Really?
And it does show up, but very rarely, and it's almost always a joke.
I'm gonna have to check that out now because I definitely did not check that out, which is weird because I did a lot of Memory Alpha checking in preparation for this episode, but I felt like this was the first time we've seen it.
Yeah, the one that stands out to me is in a Next Gen episode, someone gives Dr. Crusher gum and then she eats it. She swallows it.
Oh, jeez.
Recall that?
Oh my god, I don't.
Yeah. And then there's an Enterprise bingo in Spock Amok in Strange New Worlds. Apparently, there is a challenge to use the transporter to reflavor gum. So it has its random rare appearances.
Yeah, no, that is true. I feel like the Beverly Crusher one doesn't count because if I recall correctly, that is a holodeck episode.
Yes.
And it's one of those where I'm all like, I feel like holodeck stories, unless they're trying to create like a documentary story, like you probably wouldn't have that kind of detail in there. Unless it's relevant to the plot of whatever story you're telling.
You're right. Some world building.
Yes. I do want to call out, and I don't know if we've seen this before. So obviously, Ransom, favorite character, A++, dude deserves a medal. Yeah. Did you notice how he responds to door chimes?
Oh, he doesn't say something normal. He says something goofy, right?
Well, so like we've seen come and enter, and I don't even remember what the other things that people have said are. He responds to door chimes with "yo yo," and
yo yo.
I remember saying that and immediately like, oh my god, like that is the kind of thing. Like I know if there were door chimes now, I would respond to them with what it is. Because I would go for the most ridiculous thing possible. And I feel like that is very much what was happening there.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just stuck on that. I don't think we've seen him respond that way previously. But, I really enjoyed it.
That's a good one.
So,
other random bits.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is a lot of new lore was introduced in this season.
Okay.
Little bits and pieces of, how the galaxy works. There was the whole, Romulan bits that were just fantastic where like every time they appear, it's all about scheming and lurching and
of course.
So well put together. But you know what there was one bit of lore that was introduced that was terrible. Did you catch it?
For Romulans?
Well, just for new Star Trek lore in general, yes.
No, what is it?
Caitians used to hunt and eat Betazoids.
You're not on board with that one?
I have so many questions. Like they didn't come from the same planet, right? Which means the only way that makes sense is if that happened after Caitians had become a warp-capable society.
Or vice versa, right? After Betazoids could have been first.
You think like Betazoids came to the Caitian planet and Caitians just
they made a colony there and Caitians are just like,
oh, hey, new food source.
Yeah.
But even then, like that means that like Caitians were like primitive, society when the Betazoids showed up there, which means that, Caitians may even have a claim to being way faster in their development than humans, right? Because that's the whole big thing in Star Trek since Enterprise is humans developed technologically and socially way faster than other cultures.
Right. Maybe the Betazoids did some uplifting after the Caitians, like in order to get the Caitians to stop eating them.
Maybe.
They did a little uplift.
So many questions.
There's some drama there.
Yeah, so many questions. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, are we going to keep going through my life?
Yeah. What do you got? Let's get
okay. So, God, in Parth Ferengi's Heart Place, there's lots of little bits that like they did a really fantastic job of subtle lore building. And I don't know if this is intentional, but Mariner and was his name Quim? Is that what it was? They go to the Dominion War Memorial.
Yes, that's funny.
It's a great gag, about like how the Ferengi were mourning lost prophets, and when she arrives there, when Mariner arrives there, she's like, yeah, okay, that's very Ferengi. But she is a war veteran. She lost a tremendous amount of her friends, and that, like, we talk about the Cedo Jax a bit, right? But that is just the first step in her trauma. The second step was the Dominion War, where she talks about she doesn't want to be in charge and she doesn't want to have to send people off to die like they did in the Dominion War. So that scene, God, that adds so much more context when you learn that she was traumatized by the Dominion War. Yeah. She is very much a Nog-style character who didn't emerge from the war without any terrible experiences. And I thought that was really...
Where's the Starfleet counseling, man?
Yeah.
She needs somebody besides Miglimo. That's
well, I mean, counseling can only go so far. It's easy to vilify. It's easy to vilify counselors and therapy, but sometimes, like, dealing with trauma is it's a process. And a lot of people, they never truly get over it.
Yeah, right about that.
Which is why drugs.
It's good.
Drugs
character
always
very real.
solve the problem. That is not true.
Obviously.
That is not true. So yeah, I mean, God, that's the main thrust of it. I don't think we ever really talked about we talked about how much I enjoyed A Few Badgies more.
Yeah.
I really loved the ending. It's super wholesome. It's one of those things that there's positive endings to stories, and then there's positive endings that are positive on like a meta level. So Badgey is a homicidal maniac until he gains infinite knowledge. And once he sees everything, once he knows everything, suddenly his outlook changes. And yeah, like killing people isn't a good idea. Revenge doesn't bring anything to the galaxy.
Yeah.
It's a great ending. The connection between Agimus and Peanut Hamper, where Agimus accepts that his situation is a consequence of his own actions and chooses to pursue a resolution that takes that into context. The fact that Peanut Hamper, just opens her, mind to, I've always rejected these things, but I've never really tried them. It's just really good. It's like this it casts a wide net as far as moral and ethical and personal implications. And I just thought that was really well done. Very bizarre.
I got to agree. There's a lot of, I'm trying to find the right word to describe it. It's like, it's not a jokey plot, right? Like there are these serious, personal evolution elements to that episode, even though it's, like we said, a murderous hologram and his creator.
Yeah.
There's all of these higher tier things going on too.
Well, and it's also one of those where I always like stories that lay foundation and then pay off in the end. Whereas stories where it's just a steady progression where it's all I am moving towards a thing. Yeah, those are good. I like those stories, but where they just keep throwing things at you and then at the end it all comes together and works well. I love those stories. I always think those are so much harder stories to tell. And that is what that episode really did. I just really impressed by that episode. It's definitely up near the top of my favorites.
Yeah.
But man, it's really hard to overcome twin twains.
You're right about that. And the other interesting thing about that episode is it gives us a possibly new recurring character on the Cerritos in the form of Goodgey. So there is more Jack McBrayer in your season 5 possibly coming.
We'll see if they do anything with that. And honestly, I don't care if they do or don't. If that's the end.
As long as it's a good story, that's your motto.
Yeah, as long as it's a good story. I do kind of they're going to have to start new stories next season, right? They resolve so many things in this season.
It's weird. It felt like a transitional season, maybe. They're getting used to their new roles. You're right. Something's going to need to change, I hope. I mean, and not just plot-wise, character-wise.
Well,
there's going to need to be new stuff.
I definitely feel there's definitely room for the characters going forward. I think the addition of T'Lyn is really going to work out going forward because it gives them an extra fulcrum point in their character interactions. But yeah, I mean, they got a long way to go. Boimler still has issues. Mariner, despite having identified the source of her issues, has a long ways to go.
Gotta work through 'em, right?
Yeah, literally the only character that I look at this season and be I don't know where they're going to go with this character without it turning into a tired, hacky bit is Rutherford. I feel this, unless they could probably do a whole season-long arc of him dealing with why he rejected so many promotions and getting him to kind of accept his own excellence and making choices that feed into that. That could be an arc for him. But the others, they got a long ways to go.
I'd say he suffers from, well, I say suffer, but he seems to have the least amount of straight up ambition. I mean, Mariner says she wants to be, a lower decker forever, but I mean, she just doesn't want certain responsibilities. I don't know. I think Rutherford really is the one that doesn't seem to want. He's not gunning for a chief engineer spot.
Yeah, that is
far.
very true, and I feel like that's going to leave a really good character moment. Like one of the things a lot of people like I've noticed in like, and it may just be an American thing, but especially in like American business culture, you have to be career minded. You have to be looking to your next big promotion or move or whatever, and it's all like,
right.
Let people pursue what makes them happy.
Yeah,
but
then also pays the bills.
Well, maybe we should make it so that any person who contributes to society is afforded. You know what? We're going off topic. I'm gonna get us.
We're getting into a critique of capitalism, which we can save for
I'm gonna get
podcast.
I'm gonna get us canceled with my liberal ideals here.
They could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any other rando bits and pieces?
I mean,
before I just mentioned a couple.
You know what? I do, but like I think I've really covered everything that I wanted to cover. This season, there was so much to enjoy about it.
Yeah, there's just so much to talk about. I mean, look at how long we've been recording for, and you'll see that there's just a lot there. But just a couple of things I wanted to mention. I loved the Wrath of Khan shot for shot recreations in Old Friends, New Planets. It's weird because it doesn't fit. Like they sort of crowbarred it in. Like, I mean, it fits in the plot, but it's not like the whole rest of the episode is a Wrath of Khan reference or anything like that. But so they have it in there. Just really high production value. I love the little steam runner, what they call the saber runner ship, and it's just so great. I love that sequence so much. Somebody really took the care in recreating some of those shots, and I loved it.
They've done a great job with. Like, the space visuals are really good, and that scene...
Yeah, they're great.
Like, the whole... Like, not even... It starts way before that, right? Like, as soon as she steals that ship, there's the impact with the barrier, there is the, cat and mouse in the ice field. I kind of actually felt like... Almost like there was, like, a feeling of... Visually, there's... influence from this like just terrible, I guess it's not really terrible, but an animated movie, Titan AE, right?
Oh yeah.
There was just a stylistic callback to there, but like, yeah, the whole engagement really, there's like just shot for shot remakes from the Wrath of Khan. Only the ships are replaced. And
speaking of ships, that was my other piece of feedback. Holy God, there are so many ships in this season. I tried to when I was doing my rewatch. I tried to just pause and because I did it last season. I was cataloging all the ships that appeared here. But oh my God, there's so many. Not only existing ships designs, but new ship designs, background ships.
Our ships,
so much.
Our Ships of Season 4 episode is definitely going to be at least a 2-parter.
Yeah,
there's so much
a beefy one
to talk about in this season. It is going to be interesting.
Yeah. I hope this is a monumental task of doing a ships episode.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it and dreading it because I know I'm going to have to catalog all these bad boys.
Definitely.
But it's going to be fun.
Definitely.
I love so many of the ships, so it's going to be fun.
But you know what? We're talking about how many ships there were in this season. You know what? Yeah. There's not a lot of right now though. Booze.
I'm in the same situation. I've been out for a little while now.
Yeah, and my cup is a little empty, and I was thinking, oh, it's fine. Just go back to the bottle and get another drink. And it's not really an option. I may or may not have run out an hour ago.
Oh, no.
So, I guess since my bottle is empty and I feel like you're on the same page, maybe it's time that we call it a night. And since it's the off season, we'll probably have another episode sometime about what? Who knows? When? Who knows? But if you're dying to know, you can always check us out on
On the X. The artist firm formerly known as Twitter.
At Lower Dorks. Or, if you are so inclined and simply desire to deep dive into any season, you can find a man struggling with trying to rank episodes.
Is that just me or is that both of us?
Dude, I'm fine. I don't need to rank things. You're the one who has to create lists, dude. This is all on you.
That's true. The eternal quest of trying to find number one.
Yeah, dude. You just got to learn to roll with it. Take it as it is.